We have so many stories in our lives, but our stories are not always heard. On the Hear My True Story podcast, we tell our own true stories.
Before the white car parked, our head teacher had scattered. Looking at him, I could only see his tie that was flying backwards, waving at us, and he disappeared in thin air.
I want to share my life story. I want to share my voice with the people because I know that just a small joke I can tell through this podcast, it will make someone smile.
When you ask me what I fear most in life, I would definitely respond to you and say it's fear itself.
We are fighting for togetherness. We are fighting for equal rights. We are fighting to end injustice.
You don't have to be a storyteller or writer because, guess what? Life writes the best stories.
Hear my true story.
As you know, when you're on a table eating, that's when people talk to know more about each other. And then these children were telling each other stories. They were talking about things, that they have done, what they are going to do after kindergarten, whether they're going for swimming. Some will say I'm going to some say I'm going to the music class. They really talk. And then as we are eating our lunch, the kid calls me out. Otaku, I was like, yes. I was like, Otaku, I want to know. I said, yes, please ask me. What do you want to know? Why do you have a dark skin tone?
This is your favorite time of the week with your number one podcast.
Hear my true story.
Yeah, my dear listeners, welcome to Hear My True Story podcast. It is me, your host, Otaku, and I'm really excited to have you this week. What is so special about this time of the year? We are taking our summer break. Wow, I'm happy to say that. However, maybe some of the listeners are really sad that we are taking a break. However, we are not leaving you without something. What is so special is that we are going to be sharing with you our past episodes from our past conversations. Our best conversations that we had on this podcast. For the new listeners, this will be fresh for you. However, for the old listeners, these are some of the best conversations, the best episodes that you can revisit again and re-listen to. Because you know what? There's always something new to learn about something. Therefore, guys, sit outside wherever you are in the sun. Enjoy listening to some of these wonderful conversations that we are publishing on our podcast. Wow. I'm always excited to say something. There's also something new coming up, and I hope that you enjoy it. But after our summer break, we shall be bringing you a wonderful conversation on Hear My True Story podcast. I leave it as a surprise for those who keep listening to Hear My True Story podcast. Check every week. And for those who are listening for the first time, subscribe and check every week. We shall be having for you something. After our summer break, we bring you a wonderful, wonderful series of conversations with wonderful, wonderful storytellers. Thank you for always listening to Hear My True Story podcast.
With you every week. Hear my true story.
And today, I would like to tell you a wonderful experience that I've made as Otaku in my daily life. Anyway, yeah. So, I want to tell you something. Otaku, as a person, I'm training to be an educator. But at the moment, I have to work. At the same time, I go to school because of my training. The training I do is more of like a vocational training. You go to school. At the same time, you go to work. And this gives you the opportunity to create experiences, both in school and also at work. So the personal story I'd like to share with you, I made an experience at work. I work in an institution that works with children between 3 to 6 years. So I work with these young children. And I enjoy working with them because they really ask questions and I love to answer those questions. One thing that I have realized is that it is so beautiful to listen to them. And that's what I do. So there is this one moment when we are having lunch in our group with the children. We have about around 20-something children. So our room, we set up the tables that each table has 4 to 5 children, and each table has one adult or one educator that is seated with the children, and then we eat. So this particular day, I had a table of 5 children, and I was there as the adult. So I was eating, and the children were eating. As you know, when you're on a table eating, that's when people talk to know more about each other. And then these children were telling each other stories. They were talking about things, that they have done, what they're going to do after kindergarten, whether they're going for swimming. Some will say, I'm going some say, I'm going to the music class. They really talk. And then as we are eating our lunch, the kid calls me out. Otaku, I was like, yes. I was like, Otaku, I want to know. I said, yes, please, ask me. What do you want to know? Why do you have a dark skin tone? And I was like, yeah. Do you want to know the answer? Very happy, I responded. And the kid was like, yes. And then I looked at all the other children. They looked at me and I asked them, okay, you guys, do you also want to know the reason why I have a dark skin tone? And they're like, yeah, Otaku would like to know. And we started talking about this question. Why do I have a dark skin tone? Let me tell you something. It was very simple for me to really converse with these children. So the moment I started, I told them, every person, every human being in their skin, they have melanin. And one, you need to know, when someone has more melanin in their skin, then they will have a dark skin like mine, or they will have a dark brown skin, or maybe they may have less melanin. And that's why they will have light skin, or they will have a light brown skin. And that's because we have melanin in our skins. And then one kid was like, so, you mean, Otaku, I have less melanin in my skin? I was like, yes, because you are light skin. And the other was like, yeah, also my mother has less melanin. And the other was like, also my father has less melanin. And so I told him, yes, also my mother and father have more melanin in their skin. And that's why they also have a dark brown skin. And that's how we conversed about this question with the children of 4, 3, 5, 6 years. And then I asked them, so you guys, do you have any question that you want to ask me as Otaku right now? I'll answer it. And they're like, no, I think no question. Then we continue to eat. But the most interesting thing that I've experienced was when we are again having lunch, but this time with also another group of children on the table. And it was also I can't remember, but there were a different group of children on the table. And then one of the kiddos asked, Otaku, I want to know, why do you have a dark skin tone and the other kid has a dark brown skin tone and me, I have another skin tone? And then the child who was seated on this table when we were having lunch said, do you want to know the answer? I can tell you. That was the child telling the other child. And he was like, yeah, tell her. And the kid said, okay, you see, Otaku has more melanin in his skin. And that's why he has a dark skin. And me, I have less melanin. That's why I have light skin. So a kid explained to the other kids in my presence. And I was like, oh my God, this is something really beautiful. Because I thought I'd talked about it sometime back with the children and maybe that they forgot about it. But there was already a kid who was explaining to others on the table as they were eating. I was so happy. That day, I was the happiest trainee who wants to be an educator, that I'm doing a right job to talk about issues that people fear to talk about with children. Things like skin tone. I was so happy. And this was so wonderful for me. I was so happy. You may not see my happiness now, but you can hear it in my voice. I was happy. And today, in this episode, I want to share with you my experience. I mean, like, how do I deal with this when questions like that are raised to me during my place of work, or maybe in the community where I live, or maybe when I hear people being asked questions and they try to run away. I'll share with you my personal recommendation. You can, of course, agree with me, or you may not agree with me, but it is my recommendation. This is the way I deal with it.
Enjoying this episode? Leave a review now.
Hear my true story.
I mean, as an adult or as an educator, or maybe as a caretaker, or maybe as a parent, when your child raises a question, and it's about skin tone, please don't mix these two things. Don't mix the skin tone and race. Race is different from skin tone. That is clear. And that is what you need to know as an adult, or maybe as an educator, or maybe as a caretaker. Skin tone is different from race. These are two different terms that people keep mixing. And when you mix these two, that's where you're going to have challenges. That's where you're going to have people trying to raise some terms and say, yeah, maybe I am colorblind. People will start saying, yeah, I'm colorblind. I see someone the way they are. Because they are trying to make it clear that, maybe I'm not racist. I don't want to speak about color. I don't define someone by their color. Please, try hard to avoid that. Try hard to avoid colorblind approaches. Because I'm going to tell you something. As a person who works with children, but also at the same time as a person who has worked with young people for a long time and children, not just here in Germany, but also in my other experiences as an artist, I work with children. Children know colors. I can tell you something. When we were working with children, when we work with children in kindergartens, maybe in schools, we have so many colors around, and children pick colors and try to paint them, and they really say, yeah, today I want to use brown, I want to use dark brown, I want to use green, I want to use dark green, I want to use blue in my painting. When we move outside in the forest, when we take our forest walks, or maybe when we visit the forest with children, you can see the children saying that, yeah, this leaf is green, the other one is yellow, the other one is pink, the other one is turning green, the other one is turning yellow, because the children understand the colors. So you cannot say it's colorblind. By the time the child asks, why is that person having a different skin tone from mine? Because they have realized to identify skin tone. They can really differentiate that is light, that is dark, that is green, that is red. And by saying that, please don't ask that question, you are denying a chance to this kid to really learn, to really get the right information. So as a person, this is my way of approach. I try hard to avoid the colorblind approach, because it does not really help the child, other than it just denies them the chance to learn more about skin tone and how beautiful it is to have different skin tones in life. I know you may agree with me. Some people may think, yeah, it is important to say, yeah, colorblind approach is the best to deal with issues around racism, but be clear, because your child didn't ask you about racism. The child asked about skin tone. And by the way, when the child asks about skin tone, maybe when a child raises a question, I've experienced this, when a child can raise the question, mom, why is the other person dark skin? Don't panic, please. Don't panic, because that question does not relate with race. It's just about skin tone. 2, normalize the conversation about skin tone and race with your children. At least normalize it. For example, you can have a kid and the kid says, "Oh, mom, I've seen a man who is dark brown. Why is he dark brown? Oh, mom, we have a kid in the kita who is light skin. Why is that kid light skin and me, I have a dark skin?" Don't panic as a parent. Don't panic about that. Normalize the conversation and answer what the child has asked. It is very simple. That is the simplest way. You normalize it, talk with them happily. It's like when you are in a supermarket with your kid, you're holding them, and then the kid says, "Hey, mom, look, there's a dark-skinned man there." And then you squeeze their hand. You squeeze them like this. "Oh, please don't ask that question." Or you tell them, "Don't ask that question. It is not right to say something like that." Then they're going to ask themselves, why is it not right to say something like that? Other than being rude or maybe attacking their questions, welcome their questions, normalize them, speak to them, tell them happily, without being offensive, without being protective, without thinking it's wrong, it's not wrong. And by the way, that's not a racist act. It is not. The child is learning and the child needs the right information. So for that case of normalizing, you need to deal with it as a person. When children ask questions about skin tone and it makes you a bit uncomfortable, please don't feel uncomfortable. Feel comfortable and answer the question happily. And that is going to make change to the life of that child. And it's going to make change to their way of thinking about difference and how beautiful it is to be different because you have showed it to them. The third thing that I really think is very important is to inform yourself. This is what I do as a person. I am a dark-skinned person. I'm a black person. I'm living in Germany. Yeah, I tend to work with people with different skin tone. But it doesn't mean that I have all the right information because of being a BPOC. I can't have all the information. I inform myself. I try hard to invest in anti-racism education to gain more understanding. Yeah, more understanding about this topic rather than just relying on informal discussions that I hear from people. So I really hard find myself information. I buy books for myself. I listen to podcasts. I watch videos maybe on YouTube from people who are really more informed about this. And this is what I do. I invest in information. So as a parent, maybe as an educator, maybe someone who is running an institution, the moment you invest in information that is really right and you put it there, it can be really supportive for people to deal with this question that relates to skin tone and race. Because when you have these informations in place, that is the beginning of talking about skin tone and race with your children, or maybe with the children in your workplace if you're working with children. Yeah, so that's the beautiful thing about investing in information, investing in education about race and racism. Invest in that. Yeah. So our dear listeners, that has been my wonderful episode today. And I hope you enjoyed my experience. And to just inform you, I am a trainee. I'm training to be an educator. I'm not an expert of talking about racism with children. That's clear. But I share with you my opinion, my views, my experience, and it's up to you. You can think about it. You can also inform yourself with more and better information. Yeah. And I hope one time I'll have an expert to speak about this on my podcast, and I'll get them and I'll have an episode done, particularly on this topic with children. Thank you so much for listening. And for now, I would like to say bye.
We not only have voices for a podcast, but also faces for YouTube. Don't miss your next episode. Hear my true story.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, Music by Edwin Matovo, hosted and produced by Otako. Subscribe to our podcast for more stories and visit us on our website, hearmytruestory.com, for more stories. All the links are listed in the show notes of this podcast.